On Becoming a Person, a Therapist's View of Psychotherapy, Carl R. Rogers. To the reader, though it shocks me somewhat to say so, I have been a psychotherapist or personal counselor for more than 33 years. This means that during a period of a third of a century, I have been trying to help a broad sampling of our population, to children, adolescents, and adults, to those with educational, vocational, personal, or marital problems, to normal, neurotic, and psychotic individuals. The quote indicates that for me, these are all misleading labels. To individuals who come for help and those who are sent for help, to those whose problems are minor, and to those whose lives have become utterly desperate and without hope. I regard it as a deep privilege to have had the opportunity to know such a diverse multitude of people so personally and intimately. Out of the clinical experience and research of these years, I have written several books and many articles. The papers in this volume are selected from those I have written during the most recent 10 of the 33 years from 1951 to 1961. I would like to explain the reasons that I have for gathering them into a book. In the first place, I believe that almost all of them have relevance for personal living in this perplexing modern world. This is in no sense a book of advice, nor does it in any way resemble the do it yourself treatise. But it has been my experience that readers of these papers have often found them challenging and enriching. They have, to some small degree, given the person more security in making and following his personal choices as he endeavors to move towards being the person he would like to be. So, for this reason, I should like to have them more widely available to any who might be interested, to the intelligent layman, as the phrase goes. I feel this especially since all of my previous books have been published for the professional psychological audience and have never been readily available to the person outside of that group. It is my sincere hope that many people who have no particular interest in the field of counseling or psychotherapy will find that the learnings emerging in this field will strengthen them in their own living. It is also my hope and belief that many people who have never sought counseling help will find, as they read the excerpts from the recorded therapy interviews of the many clients in these pages, that they are subtly enriched in courage and self confidence, and that understanding of their own difficulties will become easier as they live through in their imagination and feeling the struggles of the others towards growth. Another influence which has caused me to prepare this book is the increasing number and urgency of requests from those who are already acquainted with my point of view in counseling, psychotherapy, and interpersonal relationships. They have made it known that they wish to be able to obtain accounts of my more recent thinking and work in a convenient and available package. They are frustrated by hearing of unpublished articles which they cannot acquire, by stumbling across papers of mine in out of the way journals. They want them brought together. This is a flattering request for any author. It also constitutes an obligation which I have tried to fulfill. I hope that they will be pleased with the selection I have made. This is a flattering request for any author. I also constitutes It also constitutes an obligation which I have tried to fulfill. I hope that they will be pleased with the selection I have made. Thus, in this respect, this volume is for those psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, educators, school counselors, religious workers, social workers, speech therapists, industrial leaders, labor management specialists, political scientists, and others who have in the past found my work relevant to their professional efforts. In a very real sense, it is dedicated to them. There is another motive which has impelled me, a more complex and personal one. This is the search for a suitable audience for what I have to say. For more than a decade, this problem has puzzled me. I hope that I know that I speak to only a fraction of psychologists. The majority, their interests suggest by such terms as the majority, their interests suggested by such terms as stimulus response, the learning theory, operant conditioning, are so committed to seeing the individual solely as an object that what I have to say, often baffles, if not annoys them. I also know that I speak to but a fraction of psychiatrists. For many, perhaps most of them, the truth about psychotherapy has already been voiced long ago by Freud, and they are uninterested in new possibilities and uninterested in or antagonistic to research in this field. I also know that I speak to but a portion of the divergent group which call themselves themselves counselors. The bulk of this group are primarily interested in predictive tests and measurements and in methods of guidance. So when it comes to the publication of particular paper, I have felt dissatisfied with presenting it to a professional journal in any one of these fields. I have published articles in journals of each of these types, but the majority of my writings in recent years have piled up as unpublished manuscripts, distributed privately in mimeographed form. They symbolize my uncertainty as to how to reach whatever audience it is I am addressing. During this period, journal editors, often of small or highly specialized journals, have learnt of some of these papers and have requested permission to publish. I have always acceded to these requests with the proviso that I might wish to publish the paper elsewhere at some later time. Thus, the majority of the papers I have written during this decade have been unpublished or have seen the light of day in some small or specialized or offbeat journal. Now, however, I have concluded that I wish to put these thoughts out in book form so that they can seek their own audience. I am sure that that audience will cut across a variety of disciplines, some of them as far removed from their own field as philosophy and the science of government. Yet, I have come to believe that the audience will have a certain unity too. I believe these papers belong in a trend which is having and will have its impact on psychology, psychiatry, philosophy, and other fields. I hesitate to label such a trend, but in my mind there are associated with it adjectives such as phenomenological, existential, person centered, concepts such as self actualization, becoming, growth, individuals in this country such as Gordon Alport, Abraham Maslow, Rollo May. Hence, through the group to which this book speaks meaningfully, will, I believe, come from many disciplines and have many wide-ranging interests. A common thread may well be their concern about the person and his becoming. A common thread may well be their concern about the person and his becoming. In a modern world which appears intent upon ignoring or diminishing him. There is one final reason for putting out this book, a motive which means a great deal to me. It has to do with the great, in fact, the desperate need of our times for more basic knowledge and more competent skills in dealing with the tensions in human relationships. Man's awesome scientific advances into the finitude of space as well as the infinitude of subatomic particles seems most likely to lead to the total destruction of our world unless we can make great advances in understanding and dealing with interpersonal and intergroup tensions. I feel very humble about the modest knowledge which has been gained in this field. I hope for the day when we will invest at least the price of one or two large rockets in the search for more adequate understanding of human relationships. But I also feel keenly concerned that the knowledge we have gained is very little recognized and little utilized. I hope it may be clear from this volume that we already possess learnings which, put to use, would help to decrease the interracial, industrial, and international tensions which exist. I hope it will be evident that these learnings used preventively could aid in the development of mature, non defensive, understanding persons who would deal constructively with future tensions as they arise. If I can thus make clear to a significant number of people the unused resource knowledge already available in the realm of interpersonal relationships, I will feel greatly rewarded. So much for my reasons for putting forth this book. Let me conclude with a few comments as to its nature. The papers which are brought together here represent the major areas of my interest during the past decade. The one partial exception in this area of explicit theory, the one partial exception in this is in the area of explicit theory of personality, having just recently published a complete and technical presentation of my theories in a book which should be available in any professional library. I have not tried to include such material here. The reference referred to is my chapter entitled A Theory of Therapy, Personality and Interpersonal Relationships as Developed in the Client Centered Framework in Koch S. Education Psychology, A Study of Science, Volume 3, page to page 140, 184 to 256, McGraw-Hill, 1959. They were prepared for different purposes, usually for different audiences, or formulated simply for my own satisfaction. I have written for each chapter an introductory note which tries to set the material in an understandable context. I have organized the paper in such a way that they portray a unified and developing theme from the highly personal to the larger social significance. In editing them, I have eliminated duplication, but where different papers present the same concept in different ways, I have often retained these variations on a theme, hoping that they might serve the same purpose as in music, namely to enrich the meaning of the melody. Because of their origin as separate papers, each one can be read independently of the others if the reader so desires. Stated in the simplest way, the purpose of this book is to share with you something of my experience, something of me. Here is what I have experienced in the jungles of the modern life, in the largely unmapped territory of personal relationships. Here is what I have seen. Here is what I have come to believe. Here are the ways I have tried to check and test my beliefs. Here are some of the perplexities, questions, concerns, and uncertainties which I face. I hope that out of this sharing, you may find something which speaks to you. Departments of Psychology, Psychiatry, the University of Wisconsin, April 1961.